At least after today, we'll talk about something different. It is Valentine's Day. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indimuli. How hot is a coffee where you are?
And I'm used to Stanley Nyaringita. And at least you're having a shade of, is that red?
I tell you.
It's Cameroon.
It's Valentine's, you know.
It's Valentine. They're having for your Valentine special.
Okay.
Tuandalie ama tusiandalie?
Tuandalie.
Tuandalie.
Something
aka
nice
Valentine's,
this Valentine's.
Aka Valentine's gift, a state-of-the-art actually. Oof.
They say state-of-the-art studio setup.
At least the red,
wow.
marks it. Oh,
how do you like it? I'm loving it already.
Ooh.
Wow. Anyway.
We enjoy it for a while before Matukio starts to feel it. Yes.
And we're unveiling it right here on Morning Cafe. How about that?
Definitely.
Nakwambia Valentine's na mambo yake. Anyway, let's get down to business. Let's take a look at the headlines this morning. And yes, on the Standard, Ruto goes after expensive loan to settle Eurobonds. That's the first headline on the Standard today.
Let's move on to the next, which is Daily Nation. Ghost workers get away with 35 billion Kenyan shillings. I'll be telling you what that is all about.
On Taifa Leo, e-Citizen yaanza kutesa wazazi. Habari kuu pale.
Katika gazeti la Star, wage bill crisis, boards demand doubled salary.
And on the Business Daily, Kenya pays dearly to avoid a 316 billion shilling Eurobond default.
And from BD to PD, why Ruto wants Raila for AU post. We'll be telling you all about those intricates. Tuingie kwenye masuala ya weather. And today, I'm taking a look at the weather from Eldoret. From Eldoret, it is 50 degrees Celsius right now, in case you're planning to go from there. In Eldoret, it will promise to get as hot as 27 degrees Celsius. Moving on, and that is the weather for you. The traffic, I was taking a look at it earlier. Quite most of the roads were as smooth as possible. We'll be updating you as we cross over during the show. That is for the weather. Let's take a look at the highlights for you.
In our highlights this morning, Kelvin Kinyanjui, suspect to escape from police custody while awaiting extradition to the US, arrested in Ngong.
And President Ruto embarks on an extensive 3-day development tour of the Mount Kenya region, starting this morning, that will see him traverse Kiambu, Murang'a, Kirinyaga, and Nyeri counties.
And Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara gifts AFCON winning players the equivalent of 12 million Kenya shillings each, plus a villa worth a similar amount, as second-placed Nigerian players get an apartment each and a piece of land near Abuja.
Right, good for them, and hopefully they're asking, where was Kenya during this particular AFCON? I don't know if tungetulia, if
tungewapatia affordable housing.
Well, makes sense. And speaking of affordable housing, that is what will be discussed majorly around the Mount Kenya region when President William Ruto will be traversing these areas. And I know areas, so President William Ruto will be flanked by his Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua for a 3-day development tour of the Mount Kenya region, starting today. So Ruto and Gachagua are expected to begin the tour with Lari and Kangema constituencies as of today. Let's flip our diary for you. And today is the 14th, so we definitely expect matters fuel. The Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, will be reviewing the fuel prices for petrol, diesel, and kerosene. So last month, EPRA had reduced the prices of the petroleum products by at least 5 Kenyan shillings per litre. And, well, every 14th is Ash Wednesday, and it is the first day of the liturgical season of Lent. It always falls 6.5 weeks before Easter, beginning the Lenten season of preparation for Christ's resurrection on Easter Sunday. it is a day of obligatory attending Mass is mandatory. So definitely, Fred, even we're told that now we can officially begin the countdown to Easter.
All right.
As fresh as possible. But speaking of countdowns, this is one countdown that I've been doing ever since Valentine's. And Kenyans will today join the world in marking Valentine's Day, which is also known as St. Valentine's Day. Now, for many, it's a special time in the year when people show their affection for another person, or people by sending cards, flowers, or chocolates with messages of love. And you can tell us on our socials, who are you sending some Valentine's messages to? Talk to us. Who are you sending some Valentine's messages to? But away from that, and meanwhile, even as Valentine's continues, rights groups have organized a dark Valentine vigil taking place at the University of Nairobi. The purpose of the vigil is to remember the victims of femicide, as well as to put pressure on Parliament to act on their demands. Internationally, Jamaican artist Vybz Kartel is set to appear before the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in the United Kingdom following his arrest in 2014. That is the news diary for you. Meanwhile, today in history, back in 2016, people in the Central African Republic wrapped up voting to elect new democratic leadership. And that is our cue to get into kwenye magazetini kwa sasa. Right, and that particular highlight also of Vybz Kartel. I don't know if you know one song by Vybz Kartel.
I don't know any song by Vybz Kartel, unfortunately, unless you sing. Would you? Sing for me, sing for me. I'll tell you if I know.
There's one, Underwater, but I can't, you know, for Vybz Kartel's songs, you have to get into a particular...
All right, let's take a look at the papers this morning. All right, on the Standard this morning, Ruto goes after expensive loan to settle Eurobonds. On debt management, President William Ruto's gamble to raise billions of shillings of new debt from international investors has paid off after the government received bids for $6 billion spread to 2031. However, the new loan comes at a steep price, as the country will pay almost double the interest rate it had on the loan it is repaying now. That story is on page 2. And, you know, these matters of debt, we've been talking about them over and over. Right. I think it is time Kenyans start reading more about this debt and understand how is it that we've taken another Eurobond to pay back the earlier one.
And how even costly it will be comparing to even other countries which are also in the same situation.
Yes, and I saw yesterday debate online about whether or not the interest rate would be at 11%, but according to the Central Bank and Treasury, they say it will be 9.75%. But what exactly does that mean? Anyway, other stories making headlines on the front page of the Standard this morning. Down there, Raila's journey to AU top job begins with Mudavadi trip to Addis. You remember the secret that Mudavadi was talking about when he was in Bondo, and he said, very soon I'll come back here with some very good news for you people in Bondo. Now we're seeing that Mudavadi himself is leading a trip to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the headquarters of the African Union. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi is expected to lead Kenya's push to have Raila elected chairperson of the African Union Commission during the interministerial conference of the AU meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that begins today. Very interesting turn of events there. Before we leave the bottom strip of the front page of the Standard, Teachers Union in new battle over TSC. The two main teachers' unions are spoiling for a fight to restore credibility in the eyes of their members and to stamp their authority with the employer. That story is on page 8. And of course, matters love, almost at the center page, on the front page. Love is in the air, but at a cost. Yeah. If you can just move the page, just move up on the page a bit. The price of flowers may double as harsh economic times push florists to hike prices A bouquet of flowers previously selling at 500 bob is going for 1,000 shillings. So that is a cost of love, this Valentine's.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I think that's why I was planning to buy a bouquet for someone random, but...
Random?
Yes.
Okay.
But the economy...
Economy kakata.
Down.
Uchumi mbaya.
The day is still early. And actually, speaking of which, we'll be telling our viewers how they can actually make the dinner date for today as special as possible. We'll be giving them those details.
All right.
I'm at 22 Ash Wednesday.
Mambo pia Ash Wednesday, pia ni leo. Yeah? So, I'm just trying to find out more because I'm not very well versed about Ash Wednesday. It is a holy day of prayer and fasting in many Western Christian denominations. It is preceded by Shrove Tuesday and marks the first day of Lent. Ah, now I get it. Yes. First day of Lent. The 6 weeks of penitence before Easter. So you can actually calculate Easter from today's date.
Yes.
Let's go back to the front page of the Standard. On the top strip, Coach and Kiptum were inseparable, and widow mourns. As we continue paying tribute to the men's world marathon record holder, Kelvin Kiptum died on Sunday. There are more stories about him and his coach. On business, relief as shilling makes a big gain against the dollar. And finally, police in court over sale of exhibit that killed 23 people. And that's the front page of the Standard. The back page of the Standard, we are no longer talking about AFCON. Now it's about Kiptum, what Kiptum's tragic death means to athletics world. And you have an image of that runner there. And also another image of former world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge and the respective records in the world marathon that they've set separately. And that's the Standard this morning.
Right. And that is our cue now to head into the People Daily. That story by Kiptum and takes us to the front page of Kiptum says the last moments of legend Kiptum. They have that story on pages 2 as well as 31. But now for the big story is that why Ruto wants Raila for AU post, also reflected on the Standard. And they say it is a grand plan. President's advisors think that African Union top job will retire as Azimio leader out of 2027 polls and give Kenya Kwanza some breathing space. But speaking of which, and speaking of Azimio leader Raila Odinga, he was there at Hadija ECD Center together with Mombasa Governor Abdul Swamad and Nasir and making sure that these young learners are fed. Still on the front page of People Daily, terrorists jailed over plot to attack Nairobi. And at the very top scroll, they tell you 2,000 civil servants risk losing their jobs. And they have photos there of DCI boss Mohamed Amin, EACC CEO Twalib Barak, Public Service Commissioner, Commission Chair Anthony Mushiri, and EACC Chairperson Bishop David Oginde addressing journalists yesterday. And that in a nutshell is the People Daily. But at the very bottom scroll of this paper, and they're telling you simple ways to show love this Valentine's Day. As much as the Standard was showing you at a very costly, a bouquet of flowers going for about 1,000 bob, and showing you how about 1,000 bob, well, probably you can have some simple ways of showing love. You don't really have to spend too much of, as much of 1,000 bob. Fred, so we'll be also telling you why and how you can actually make it a very simple way to show love this particular Valentine's Day.
All right. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation this morning. Ghost workers get away with 35 billion shillings. That's the main headline on the Daily Nation. Payroll theft has contributed to 42 counties breaching statutory salary caps. A further addition to that story, as civil servants with fake papers and must, a Senate watchdog committee investigating bogus salary payments demanded payroll audits from counties. Some differed, and for those that appointed task forces, a High Court order has outlawed them. With the probe stalled, rogue officials will keep the loot. The story is on page 7, and then they've given the progression of how the wage bill has kept on rising since 2014 till last year. That's the last 10 years. The public wage bill trend since the advent of devolution, and it keeps going up. from 77 billion shillings to 195 billion. And very interesting numbers there. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation, they talk about the tragedies that have robbed the world of rising stars. And they have images there of quite a number of Kenyan athletes who've died over the last few years, starting with Samuel Wanjiru, the marathon champion who died following a fall in 2011. We had Nicholas Bett killed in a road accident in 2018. Agnes Jebet Tirop violently killed in 2021. And the latest, Kelvin Kiptum, who died in a road accident on Sunday. And yes, the promise that Kiptum had made, saying, I will get close to the sub-2 barrier, so why not aim to break it? I am not afraid of setting these kinds of goals. Matters Love on the front page of the Daily Nation on the right-hand side. Pricey dinner with a date miles away for a worthy cause. A Valentine's dinner tonight for 6,000 shillings per person. Anyone? Well, you will spend the evening showing love in a little unconventional way.
So miles away.
Are you interested?
I'll be interested, but then, again, they say unconventional. So this means you're not going with your person. This is best suited if you're going with someone else's mpoa. And you go many miles away. So that's about 300 kilometers. How far is 300 kilometers from Nairobi?
It's never that serious. It's never that serious. Let's continue with the news on the top strip of the Daily Nation. IEBC, Kenya Kwanza blackmails Azimio coalition to support housing levy. That story is on page 4. Now that parliamentarians are back at work. And on the Maribe Joey saga, not yet off the hook. DPP appeals acquittal of Maribe in murder trial. That story is on page 3. On the back page of the Daily Nation, concern of a high cost of health insurance funding. Social Health Insurance Fund, a cause for concern for global lenders. And elsewhere, consumption of fuel falls to lowest level in 5 years amid high prices. Yeah? So the high prices have had a negative effect on how Kenyans consume fuel and probably in our driving habits as well. Incidentally, today is the 14th.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So, yes, we do expect another review of the price of fuel at the pump.
Oh, yes.
All right. That's the Daily Nation today.
Let's cruise over to the Star, and they have a whole other headline, not focused on other dailies, wage bill crisis. They say boards demand double salary, and matters Parks, County Public Service Boards locked in legal war with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. So MPs, judges and MCAs among state officers clamoring for more pay. More is on pages 4 and 5. At the bottom, a similar photo that was on the People Daily. Azimio leader Raila Odinga, together with Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad, feeding pupils at Khadija ECD Center. Away from that, on the right, or rather the left, terror suspects found guilty of possessing IED. And to scroll that, all right, there you have it. MPs oppose plot to clip Attorney General's powers. They have a photo there of Justin Muturi, who's the Attorney General. And they say, in context, MPs have questioned a plot to clip the powers of Attorney General Justin Muturi. So this follows a proposal to take away the public seal from the State Law Office and to the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. So members of the Joint Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, JLAC, and Administration and Internal Security have protested the planned changes. At the very top, a sad story. According to a parent whose child was rather lost his life some days ago after a bus crushed the head, and they say I paid over 70,000 Kenyan shillings fee only for my son to be crushed by a school bus. Quite sad there. They have that on page 3. That in a nutshell is the front page of the Star.
Let's take a look at the Business Daily now. And on the front page of the Business Daily, Kenya pays dearly to avoid 316 billion shilling Eurobond default. They're talking about the 2024 Eurobond price versus yield. And this is after they found a way of buying back the old Eurobond that was undertaken in 2014 through a new offering. And that money goes straight to that. That's a big headline on the Business Daily. Other headlines, puzzle of 12 billion shillings Telkom Bank shares. Elsewhere on the ticker, on the front page of the Business Daily, states 21,000 acres on offer for food drive. Other highlights, trade deficit falls by 300 billion shillings as fuel imports deep. More highlights, half of livestock feeds in Kenya fail quality tests, warns KEBS. That's the front page of the Business Daily today.
Right. Tuingie kwenye gazeti la Taifa leo sasa. eCitizen yaanza kutesa wazazi. Kama serikali imeagiza ada ya shule ilipwe kwa tovuti, agizo lililositishwa na mahakama kuu hivi majuzi. Aidha dokeza kuwa ni changamoto mfumo mpya wa kulipa karo kidijitali kupitia tovuti ya eCitizen umezua kizungumkuti kwa wazazi wanaotegemea mbinu mbadala kuwezesha watoto wao kupata elimu. Mengi ni katika ukurasa wa 3. Pale chini vidokezo vingine 3. Ya kwanza, wenyeji Mlima Kenya wasubiri vinono ziara ya Ruto. Pale Kisii, masuala ya ugatuzi na changamoto zilizopo kwenye ugatuzi, MCA walenga kumtimua naibu gavana. MCAs 21 wametia saini kuunga mkono hoja ya kumuondoa naibu gavana wa Kisii Robert Munda ofisini. Masuala ya ukulima, ukuzaji wa nanasi mgodi wa dhahabu. Anatumia ardhi yenye changarawe isiyothaminiwa sana kukuza mananasi. Mwishowe pale juu, polisi 4 mfanyabiashara kuzuiliwa seli siku 15. Pale ni katika korti ya Baricho yaruhusu polisi kuzuilia wenzao 4 wanaodaiwa kuiba pombe yenye sumu kwa siku 25. Ya kushangaza hayo. Masuala ya michezo, ushindi EPL warejesha Chelsea juu. Mabao ya Gallagher na Fernandes yawezesha Chelsea kupata ushindi wa 3-1 ugenini. Kwenye gazeti la Taifa leo hii leo. That is our cue to vuka border?
Yes, let's cross the border and start off with neighboring Uganda. See what's big news there this morning. On the Daily Monitor in Kampala, Uganda, step-by-step guide to avoid land fraud. Experts say doing due diligence includes making background checks with the Lands Ministry, visiting the site and engaging all parties and authorities concerned. They said the majority of buyers are cheated because they always rush to conclude transactions with the sellers, who sometimes turn out to be fraudsters. And this is very interesting because it is the same problem we're facing in Kenya.
Yes.
Fraud, especially when it comes to buying land. And you realize we've always, every day we take a look at the Daily Monitor, there's always a photo down there about something away from matters governance and politics. And here we have Kabaka towards Kasubi Royal Tombs. So the cultural beat of the Ugandan lifestyle always features on the front page with a nice photo there of the Kabaka. That's the Daily Monitor. We take a look at the second daily in Uganda. That's the New Vision. And they talk about mobile money agents cited in 3.5 billion shilling fraud. Hundreds of clients' accounts hacked, cash withdrawn in 2 hours. Wow, interesting. That's the biggest story on the front page of the New Vision in Uganda. And yes, another photo there of the Kabaka inspecting Kasubi tombs and wax. And he's seated in a very interesting way on a mat. Matters culture in Uganda. They do actually pay a lot of attention to their culture.
To their culture.
And their history. And I do admire that a lot from our neighbors in Uganda. In Kenya, we have no culture. I think the only history we remember is the Mau Mau. Yeah. Fine. Tuvuke border tuingie Bongo.
Tuingie Bongo. And we start with the Citizen. The Citizen today, not largely focusing on matters business. The big story is Lowassa leadership road from his early school days. And Lowassa is the Prime Minister, Tanzania's former Tanzania Prime Minister, Edward Lowassa, who was being mourned and as a diligent, was mourned, diligent worker who participated in nearly every activity since his school days in Monduli. The leaders narrating losses, patience, courage as Dar residents pay tribute. At the very bottom, matters experts want to upscale the trade in products from key East Africa sectors. In other news, Tanzanians in the diaspora remit 1.3 trillion Tanzanian shillings, though. That is according to the Bank of Tanzania. The very top Parliament committee tells government to double budget for the rural roads. Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, kwaheri Mwamba. A similar story, wakimwambia kwaheri Lowassa, aliyekuwa waziri mkuu nchi ya Tanzania. Kwingineko, sababu zilizokatisha uhai mawaziri wawili wa zamani. Na kwingineko, I was trying to load the New Times from Rwanda. Well, it seems as if they're still dozing off, not yet updated their daily. But tuingie kwenye caricature. And page 17 starts us off on the Daily Nation. It's the return of members of parliament as well as senators yesterday at 2:30 p.m. And on page 12 for the Standard.
On the Daily Nation, page 17, the cartoon talks about, yes, the return of parliamentarians to the Houses of Parliament. And they say there, Parliament reopening, no patriotism, values, integrity, independence beyond this point. And it's very unfortunate that that's the kind of image that they've created, that Kenyans believe that once parliamentarians enter the hallowed halls of the august house, they leave patriotism, values, integrity, and independence outside. So they've been interacting with their constituents for all this time, but once they get back to Parliament, it's about themselves and their greed.
Oh, yes.
Very unfortunate assessment.
And another assessment on page 12 of the Standard. They have a gentleman there with, interestingly, what a large nose. And in his coat pocket, it is 2027, and he's saying, Happy Valentines. And the common Mwananchi, there's some papers there, 2022 promises. And the common Mwananchi saying, rather has donned the common uniform donned in that particular region, the Kitenge, region Mount Kenya. And she's saying, no longer feeling the love.
Yeah, we're already talking about promises for 2027. Yes. What have we done about the promises made for 2022? Yes.
Oh, it seems as if the box that this gentleman was coming with,
it's a box.
So inside this box, there were papers, coming out on coffee debt, property titling, 2022 promises. Probably now seems as if the box might be empty now. That is the Standard. On page 10 of People Daily, Stano decided to rest today and have a pictorial of, well, a beautiful lady. We give credit where it is due.
Okay.
Yes.
Talking matters love.
Yes.
And how to show love.
Florist Joan Wanjiku displays Valentine's wares on Kimathi Street there, holding some teddy bears.
All right. After the break, we'll be talking about the state of the nation with our panelists today. Maina Karobia, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, will be in studio alongside Cynthia Muge, Woman Representative Nandi, Daniel Orogo, political analyst, and Harriet Njoki Mboshe, presidential candidate and council member, Law Society of Kenya. Do stand by for that conversation. Plus, the big one, and this is Nyaringita's favorite, matters etiquette. Now that later on you're hoping to take someone, or at least go out for some nice dinner or so. And just how to do it and do it well.
Oh, yes.
So do stand by for that conversation coming later on.
And there was
Love and Valentine.
I was loading the photos of what we'll be having. Some dining etiquette with grace and style there.
Oh, yes.
And later on, we'll have a saxophonist named Don. To the whole, you know. Oh, you definitely don't want to miss this one. Okay. Don will be in the house for some Valentine special edition. Some whole other classic way
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And make sure you're part of this conversation through our social media pages on X, TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Let's take a break now. You're watching Morning Cafe. 7, and we're still trying to enjoy this new space that we have today. I don't know how much you like it. This morning we want to take a look at the dailies on State of the Nation. The Daily Nation talks about ghost workers getting away with 35 billion shillings and civil servants using fake papers to acquire jobs. Meanwhile, on the Standard, Ruto goes after expensive loan to settle Eurobonds. And that's the other big talking point. The other big headline is on the People Daily. And allow me just to confirm that with you. Why Ruto wants Raila for AU post. That's on the People Daily. Talks about president's advisors thinking that African Union top job will retire as Azimio leader out of 2027 polls and give Kenya Kwanza breathing space. That is just some of the headlines this morning from the dailies. On the Taifa Leo, e-Citizen yaanza kutesa wazazi. And on the Star, wage bill crisis, boards demand doubled salary. This morning we're privileged to have in studio, let me start with my immediate right, Harriet Njoki Mboshe, presidential candidate and council member, Law Society of Kenya. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
Good to be here. Good morning, Kenya.
Yes, next to Njoki, we have Maina Karobia, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly. Also good to have you in studio, sir.
Thank you for hosting me. It's a great pleasure to be back here.
Yes, Woman Representative Nandi County, Cynthia Muge is also in studio. It's a pleasure to have you, madam.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for always making time for us, Asante.
Okay, and finally, Daniel Orogo, political analyst. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in this studio. I think you were just meant to come and launch this table. It's good to have you in studio.
I was wondering why it's taken me a long time.
No, we're fixing the table.
I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation.
So
thanks for launching the new
studio setup.
The table.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, quite some interesting headlines this morning. Of course, the Eurobond is the biggest talking point, and some politics without possibility of Raila gunning for that AU chairperson's position. But I want us to start off with this disturbing piece of news that's on the front page of the Daily Nation. Ghost workers getting away with 35 billion shillings. Ghost workers in government offices. And they say that this payroll theft has contributed to 42 counties breaching statutory salary caps. A Senate watchdog committee investigating bogus salary payments demanded payroll audits from counties. Some differed, and for those that appointed task forces, a High Court order has outlawed them, with the probes told rogue officials get to keep the loot. So, Njoki, we've discovered a problem. Ghost workers are so many, and they're getting away with 35 billion shillings. But for now, we will just let them because we have no way out.
It's, of course, quite unfortunate for the country. There is a way out. That is why we have a law. And you know, in the Muli, we've been saying here several times now that the day we stop abiding by the law, the day we stop doing things as they're supposed to be done, then that becomes the day we start going down. And that is why you find I always talk about independence of institutions and why I always talk about the rule of law. Because the moment we allow for those to collapse, then we are setting ourselves up as a country for failure. Now, we are finding ourselves, and that is why even the other day we were saying, corruption has names. You cannot have institutional corruption. Take individual action against these people so that then something can happen. But if you look at it as a blanket, nothing much is going to happen. But you will also see that it is going to be allowed to continue to happen because certain people are benefiting from that status quo, which is quite unfortunate because the cost of living for Kenyans is getting higher and higher. We have, there's one of the things you read about the headlines, and you'll see that's a great indicator to the fact that the country is not doing very well.
Okay.
You know?
Bwana Karobia, of course, this affects mostly the counties. And in the advent of devolution, many thought that this devolved system of governance would actually help resolve this. But give it to them. Governors insist that some of these issues, especially of ghost workers, were not necessarily as a direct result of devolution as prescribed by the 2010 Constitution, but rather the defunct county authorities or municipal authorities that existed back then. How come 13 years later, or 10 years, 11 years after devolution, we've not been able to resolve that issue?
Thank you, Fred, for hosting me again. I think from where I sit, the fact that we're having this conversation right now is actually a step in the right direction. And it will help us even in terms of policy planning. It will help us even in streamlining the human resource sector in our country, the public system. So for me, I'm looking at it from a positive angle that for the first time we are having a conversation around ghost workers, people who are not even qualified. I've seen DCIA having a conversation and ESCC having a conversation around the fake academic transcripts and certificates. So the fact that we're having this conversation, it will help us even in terms of reducing the recurrent expenditure, streamline the public system, the public service system. So I think this is a conversation that will be built, and it will start at the national level, then it will be taken down to the devolved system. I know there will be a lot of intrigues around the people who have been enjoying the various status, and now their papers and their qualifications, their employment will also be put into question. But such is the life of a public system. And let me tell you, Fred, I think from where I sit, the reason as to why we are having this conversation is because 5,500 government services have been put on the digital platforms.
So as a direct result of that, now we are able to
as a direct of that, as a result of this this milestone by our government, we are now finding that things that have been hidden for the longest time, in terms of even revenue collection, in terms of the staff in various state parastatals and various government services, now they will be exposed by this particular system, because you will not be spending money on a service that, or on a person that is not within the system of public service. So for me, I'm looking at it, the reason as why we are having this conversation is actually out of the 5,500 government services that have been put on the e-citizen. And remember, there is a projection by the end of this year, 17,000 government services will be transitioned to the e-citizen. So for me, I'm looking at it from that angle, and I hope that we continue this conversation. I like the fact that the cabinet secretary for the public service and performance delivery is having some sort of roadshows within State Department. And this will help us even in terms of streamlining various state agencies in line with the manifesto upon which we elected this government on.
Let's get to hear what Cynthia Muge has to say about this, because 35 billion shillings annually, this in a country where the unemployment rate is so high, definitely this, if at all the payroll is able to accommodate this kind of amounts, this would have gone to genuine people who would be working genuinely and earning this money. How come we've not been able to weed out this problem for so many years?
Well, Fred, I want to say that it's heartbreaking. It's really disappointing to hear that at this time and age you still have this kind of issues. And I remember, Fred, I have served in the county assembly previously. Of course, I was oversighting the county government. And Fred, I cannot tell you the number of times that we instituted a team to do some HR audits and some head counts in the county. And again, Fred, you know what happened was some of those people who were affected actually went to court. And the court definitely gave stay orders, and actually there was some certain ruling that said it is barring the counties from instituting some teams, putting together a team to look into those issues. It was not very, they claimed it was not very constitutional. And I always think, Fred, because this is actually the elephant in the room, especially in the counties. You know, the regulations are you must have at least maximum of 35% of the total budget going to personnel and remuneration. But if you happened to look for a report, even the Auditor General's report right now, Fred, you would be shocked at how many percent, how much it goes into that. Up to 70%, as opposed to 35% that should be happening. Well, Fred, it's a huge cartel, so to speak, because you wonder how it gets a green light, and you wonder how those kind of institutions are still able to get money. If I was running this government, I would literally deny you the exchequer releases until you're able to provide that 5%. Because if we're using 70% of the money that is allocated to the county, which should be development on personal remuneration, Fred, it tells you we're going to the wrong direction. And I think this is something that should be dealt with. And I can tell you this, most counties and institutions don't advertise for jobs. So it creates a loophole for people to get, to be onboarded on jobs that they were not advertised, they were not budgeted for. You just find that when you do an audit today, you have 300 employees. Next time, they advertise for an employment of 60 people, and when you do an audit, even a very informal audit, you find that over and above the 60 posts that were advertised, you have 110 that were sneaked in. Wow. You know, I think it's a whole issue and should be sorted because it's been just too long.
Okay. Well, Orogo, it appears we've simply turned the county establishments or county governments into employment bureaus. That was never the intention, was it?
I mean, yeah, I think like you have indicated that we, as a country, we didn't expect that as we were devolving power resources back to the 47 units from the central government, that we had hoped that to get a smooth and efficient devolve functions to the counties. However, the framers of the Constitution had actually warned that there's a possibility of devolving the bad manners that comes from the central government to the county. May I admit that this is a case that historically, as you have given an account, that some are alluding that it could be, not really from the devolved government as we see or as per se, but probably from the defunct governments that we had before the transition. Fred, I have belabored to try to look at the definition of a ghost worker. Because we've had huge politics of who is this ghost worker. And I think it's defined as someone who is added into the payroll and is benefiting from work that they're not doing. So the question is, who does that and for what benefit? And why in the counties and in whose command, on whose chain? So that apparently speaks to a lot of things in this country. May I begin to say that we are discussing it as a hardware, but what about the softwares of this country? Talking about the integrity, of the citizens, and as indicated in Article 10 of our Constitution. This also speaks to the Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Yesterday, I benefited to watch a very nice conversation here yesterday about what is it that defines, a political leader. And the whole set here yesterday was about issues of integrity. And it goes back to this morning. We are talking about officials within the county government who have gone ahead to add people into their payroll that probably are not really doing their work. And as Honorable the women representative has said that this is a systematic issue that happens in the country. This is a systematic issue that happens in the government. And we as a country have lost billions and billions of shillings. The question is, does the law really compel these particular individuals or these particular authorities, to recover back this money because it has been gained by other means that are not really, right or unconstitutionally, ingrained. So this, for me, apart from, the public, the Senate Public Accounts Committee being bad legally, because reading from this, the law is trying to bar them from, moving further and even effective recommendations. But even as that happens within the corridors of justice, the question is, what is really the embodiment of integrity for the Kenyans and civil servants and public servants. Today, you might be talking about ghost workers. You've just alluded that we're having people here who, benefited, that their papers really are not up to date. The other issue, you may come back, a number of issues that we really need to discuss about what then is the effect of us being integral in this country.
And of course, the other strand to that story is, as you've rightly mentioned, is the issue of fake and forged academic papers. And we'll be looking at that after the break. Do stand by for that. The Ministry of Interior, Geothermal Development Company, under the Ministry of Energy, Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital have the highest number of employees with fake academic and professional papers. The top 2 referral hospitals could be run by people with fake academic papers. Just imagine that. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. Let's take a break now. You're watching Morning Cafe. This is TV47. My name is Fred Ndimuli. And we still continue looking at the main headline on the front page of the Daily Nation on the ghost workers getting away with so much money, and the following strand there, civil servants with fake papers unmasked. The story is on page 7. Let's focus now on this issue of fake academic papers. And the Public Service Commission audit report on academic and professional certificates has made a survey of all civil servants employed in the last 10 years and revealed that out of 29,000 audit cases processed, over 2,000 are found to have fake academic and professional certificates. Now, the PSC found that most common types of forgery in the public service are of academic certificates, alteration of Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, KCSE, because many would imagine that this kind of forgery or issue probably would just be concerning university degrees, but no, it goes as low as KCSE. And a number of cases where certificates were presented to secure jobs but did not belong to the alleged holder. So I get a Orogo certificate and I present it and I get the job. Also rampant are cases of bachelor's degree certificates, second division lower, being altered to reflect 2nd division upper. This is a systemic issue, and it's not just at the university level. It goes way down to KCSE. And when our education system is churning out people who feel that through cheating, you can actually make it in this life, what does that mean for this society?
Ndimuli, I'm trying to think about why it is that we're finding ourselves where we are finding ourselves. You remember even in our constitution and various statutes, we have qualification that requires someone to have, for instance, a degree certificate. And we have seen time without number, even politicians being taken to court for forging their degree certificates as well, or for pretending to have degree certificates and they don't. So I think the first conversation as a country we need to ask ourselves is, do we want to have those academic qualifications as a criteria for entry? And if then we agree, as we have agreed in the statutes and in the constitution that we're supposed to have them, then we must build our institutional capacity to verify. Because you'll recall even in the immediate past election where the IEBC was saying, you know what, we do not have the mechanism for verifying. And we then have, for instance, to rely on the Council for University Education. And the Council for University Education then has to write to the various institutions. So there's a question of institutional capacity there. And that is why when I talk of institutional capacity, I have to disagree here with my brother Heshimiwa when he was speaking about the first issue and saying that the ghost workers are now being revealed because we are moved to digital platforms where you are requiring even schools. I mean, at the University of Nairobi where I teach, now, where students go for mess meals and they pay 30 bob, you're requiring that to be paid through e-citizen. So how are you building your institution? How then are you helping the institution to be able to turn around even in terms of the demand? So I believe strongly that one of the reasons why we're having these problems that we're having, and the tragedy is that someone may sit and think that because I can afford this, then the fact that we are having weak institutions or the fact that we are not building capacity for our hospitals may not necessarily affect me. But you know what? What goes around comes around. It's important that we build our institutions. It's important that the money then that the institutions are making is able to also stay there and empower and strengthen those institutions. So I like to say, number one, we must strengthen our institutions. The first way of making sure that we do that is by making sure even that the revenues that they're generating are also able to work for them.
Okay. And the question is, how do you convince a young person in school that they actually need to work hard? It used to be so many vijana muongeze pia bidii mwisho tapata kazi nzuri sana. But as it is right now, and we've seen the cases of exam cheating in our high schools. Now we see that even if you fail in KCSE, you can simply forge an academic certificate and still secure a job using that. And even if you ensure you get to probably university using a forged certificate, even if you fail, you can still even forge your university degree and still end up working. And perhaps even the benefits would be better for you. How do we convince the younger generation that hard work actually pays?
I think, Fred, from how I see it, this is a question of our Kenyan culture, the values that we hold dear as a people. Because it's not necessarily me telling a young person whether he or she will get a job, but rather the kind of culture, the kind of values we hold dear as a country. And I remember when we were forming this, or when we were developing the constitution that we had, I remember there was an in-depth conversation around what can we call as the national ethos as a country. And the ethos are going to guide us in regards to how we relate with each other, how we view each other. You see, in the public service, there's something called muongozo, or generally how a guideline of how public servants should behave. I think we should have a similar muongozo at the general citizen point of view, so that it can help us to know that, Fred, I can give you a job, and I believe that you're going to deliver. I will not be looking at the prejudices of where you come from, and look at, but rather look at the merits that you have in regards to doing that job. So I think the conversation around national ethos is something that we need to have as a country, and I want to really ask the ministry around the culture and heritage to really have a conversation around this. Culture is not just about the traditional dancers and the utamaduni.
But
it's a question of how the values that we.
But who will lead this conversation if at all we are saying that politicians are actually the ones leading?
The people who will
cheating when it comes to academics.
The people who will have that conversation.
And they are the biggest beneficiaries of it.
We do have a member of parliament here.
You see, let me tell you, Rani, Fred, the conversation around development of a country should not be left to politicians only. I always say that it's the public that shapes the politicians.
Sure.
A politician will not just come and decide that today I'm going to go and steal some money somewhere. No, it's the public that should be demanding, or it's the public that develops that politician. Remember, Cynthia or myself, we didn't just wake up from somewhere and found ourselves as politicians. 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, I was an ordinary citizen. So I rose from a citizen to the political field. So we all come from the citizens, and we all go back to the citizens. Okay. So I think the citizens should demand better from all office bearers, whether it is a politician, whether it is a journalist, whether it is a doctor, whether it is a teacher. If we demand best from any office bearer.
Even from the perspective of a member of parliament, and you know what happens there, and you know the number of accusations and even court cases that have come up, especially when it comes to forgery of academic papers by elected members.
You know, Fred, we cannot also do blanket condemnation because there are just a few elements who have issues. And you know, Fred, I normally wonder, from the rulings and interpretations of the Constitution that have been made by the courts, it's actually not a requirement for you to have any academic qualifications, so to speak, to be in Parliament. That is according to what the Constitution says. So I think this discussion, especially on the politicians, is a bit skewed. But that said, Fred, and like my friend, Honorable Maina Karobia says, politicians are a reflection of the people. Fred, I was voted in by 300,000 voters from Nandi County. So when you see me, you should be able to see those people that voted for me. So there's no politician who drops like manna from heaven. They are a creation of their people. So we are just a representative of what those people are. And we try to be at our best because we represent very good people. On this issue, Fred, of the fake academic certificates, first of all, for anyone who has been found to have presented fake certificates, they should be surcharged, they should be fined, and they should be prosecuted. There should be no discussion about it. And then the discussion of on humanitarian grounds, they should be left. I say no, because on humanitarian grounds, someone who has legit papers should have gotten the job, but someone who doesn't have them actually got the job. So there's nothing like humanitarian. That person who doesn't have a job also deserve our humanitarian comment on that part. And again, Fred, fake equals to incompetence. And you and I know how catastrophic the ripple effect of incompetence can be. And these people who have fake papers have denied people who have legitimate papers to contribute to the nation building. And Fred, I think it's just, I don't know, it should be as simple as it gets.
Even more worrying is the fact that some of the institutions affected, or those that have the highest number of such cases, are institutions that are supposed to be leading in public health. The Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, the top 2 referral hospitals in Kenya, and some of the worst affected. I think the other one is CBC. But in public services that affect people directly, especially health services or security, it should concern us as Kenyans that most people who work there, or quite a huge chunk of people who work there, got those jobs through forged academic papers.
And I think even more worrying is trying to look at the background of how they got there. I am persuaded, Fred, to believe that some of these have been working in these, sectors for years. Fred, that means successive regimes where they have been serving. Quite interesting conversation. And just like you've alluded to, Fred, I was taking stock, and to just know one of the ministry that is affected is the Ministry of Interior. This is where internal security, matters that deals with securing people's properties and lives and enforcing the rule of law. You've also mentioned that it's permeated even an energy sector, looking at the sectors of health. Recently, Fred, we had a case in this country where a lawyer was prosecuted for possessing a fake qualifications and having represented a number of clients. I hope that my colleague would have, will weigh in on that issue as well, until the Law Society of Kenya reined in that these. And remember, he's won cases, in the court, cases. Some people. I'm just saying, Harriet would weigh into this, and just before I finish, I'll just get into the sectors that are affected.
Our country, that was propaganda. That was a rumor. Many Kenyans know also how long it takes to complete a case. Now, this gentleman started masquerading, I think it was in public domain, for about a year or so.
Yes.
So then that it was propaganda and sensationalization that those cases were not, they would not ideally...
I'm just saying, the sectors that are affected.
I'm just helping you in terms of correcting that aspect of winning cases. Otherwise, you can proceed.
All right.
So he did not win.
Thank you, Harriet. And you see, but at least there's a case. I was just saying that this issue has permeated every sector in this country. People masquerading as people who've qualified. And to some extent have gone far and, pose as professionals, as honorable members have alluded to. But, that again speaks to what I said before in my opening remarks. And as a country, do we need to have a conversation about the national ethos again? Honorable Maina Karobi has said that, there have been issues about discussing the Kenyanese in terms of what is the Kenyan culture that we can agree on. I am persuaded even for us to agree on a national dress has been an issue, which is the main national dress for Kenya. That has been an issue. Is it the Maasai dress? Is it the the Kikuyu dress? So we've not had a common, cultural representation.
We disagree on
of this country. So if for example, that is what we've not have a conversation on. Here we want to have a conversation on the national ethos. For example, if you are affected and if you have been found to possess a fake degree certificate, what happens to you? That one we've not agreed on. We've not even agreed on what is this term corruption as a country. In your own ethnic background or in your own where you are coming from, your culture has not defined what is corruption. My culture has not defined what is corruption. Even in the Kenyan laws, has not been defined what is corruption. I am just saying, if you are taken to court, what will you be charged with corruption? You will be charged with something else. So one of the things I'm saying is that we really need to have a really conversation as a country, because the condemnation that has gone through our politicians, the condemnation that has gone through what is politics, once you're getting even into politics, you know, the negativity that comes with it is simply because it is seen as something that is profiteering, as something that is corrupt. But I think mine was just to look into, then how then would we, because we'll be seated here talking about scandals after every scandals. Could we now ask our members of parliament that when you have a conversation about, for example, having a national prayer day, can we now look at the country and saying, apart from us having members of parliament singing choirs and chorus during the national prayer day, the country would have a conversation where we are talking about, now this is the ethos of the Republic of Kenya, and every,
I thought initially,
every member of country is okay. There too. I think this is my view about.
Okay. Well, in the Muli, you know the fish rots from the head. Now, what exactly kind of conversation would we be having when you're talking about the ethos? Because even a Kenyan will tell you, the government promised, ilisema tutatenga, tutafanya, wiki ijayo, mwaka ujayo. So where are we supposed to have that particular conversation when we are having it? Anyway, the other thing I'd like to say is my sister talked about the issue of academic qualification. You know, Article 99 of the Constitution talks about qualification for you to run as a member of parliament, and it says that one of the criteria could be academic qualification with respect to MPs, and Article 193 with respect to MCAs. So we do have a constitutional basis for placing the academic qualification as a criteria. But also the other thing I wish to add at this point is just to say that one of the problems also one of the reasons why we will also find ourselves with situations whereby we have either ghost workers or we have people who are not qualified serving in various places, including in hospitals and various spaces, is because of this reward system that we have after campaigns and after elections. So that people now have to reward people and they end up filling gaps that should not be there. So if there's a culture we would then be wanting to examine, is the culture of rewarding criminals in this, generally the space that we operate in. And it's not a conversation that can only be had in one office. It starts from the head to the bottom.
Okay. And because of time, I want us to finish that conversation there on matters to do with fake certificates and ghost workers. And I want us to focus on the headline that's on page 1 of the Standard. Ruto goes after expensive loan to settle Eurobonds. And it's also the front page of the Business Daily. Kenya pays dearly to avoid 316 billion shilling Eurobond default. Yesterday, the central bank, the Treasury rather, issued a statement saying that they finally managed to secure another Eurobond to pay back, basically to pay back the very first Eurobond that we took in 2014, which is due in June. So basically, they obtained about 1.5 billion USD. But the initial one was 2 billion USD, the one in 2014. So there's still a gap, and there'll still be gaps in financing that. But the question is, we may not understand the nitty-gritties of this, but borrowing to pay another loan. Bwana Karobia, the promise that we were not going to go that direction, that we were going to try and look inward. And Kenyans are already suffering. Kenyans have been forced to tighten their belts through taxation and other measures to ensure that even the debt repayments do not force us into this kind of situation. But it looks like we've not been able to avoid that. We've had to go back to borrow more.
You see, Fred, the kind of situation, and I don't want to belabor that, because it was well spoken by the Deputy President during the inauguration. I think he painted the picture well in regards to the situation they met during the transition period of the Treasury. Fred, we have had financial challenges since this administration came on board. And the President and the people at the Treasury and all stakeholders have been working tirelessly to ensure that we at least mitigate the situation that they met and try to find an economic footing for our country. Fred, I always say, the leadership that we have, particularly from the president, is a leadership that is very committed. It is a leadership that don't want to see our country fail. We might be having challenges of maybe which formula is best, which approach is best, but the point is that the efforts that are being put by the leadership, even the parliament, because parliament is also a stakeholder of this situation, the leadership that we have is very committed towards ensuring that we have an economic footing, because all of us are actually investors in this country. We don't want to find an economic meltdown of our country, because if it melts down, even myself, the economic projects that I have, they also go down. So this is actually a project of everyone. And it is not a project of just Kenyans.
My concern is the kind of promise that was made then, that yes, fine, we recognize this is our problem, but we will not go that direction.
Then where do we get the money? If people are complaining,
is it an admission that the promise was not?
Not an admission. Let me tell you, Fred, you cannot be, these are actually micro and macroeconomics. Mm-hmm. You cannot be saying we have debts by the international lenders, yet you are complaining when you are taxed.
Are you saying that the president and his deputy probably did not understand the magnitude of the problem when they made those remarks?
You see, there's one thing, and I want to show you. There's one thing for me to campaign, and it is another thing when there is handover of documents of how the situation is in the country. In terms of the treasury, in terms of...
So they did not understand the magnitude of the issue back then.
You see, the government that we had, in the previous government that we had previously, was a government that was closed. It is a government that was going there and taking money all over. Let me say this.
The Eurobond that is due in, this year in June was actually taken in 2014, 10 years ago.
It was taken in
1 year into the Jubilee administration.
Can I now tell you? It was taken in 2014. But in terms of usage, it was unilaterally used by the previous government, and we know it was in the sterling. Let me say this: the fact that we have had $1.5 billion transacted yesterday is a testament that international lenders and development partners have full confidence in our economy.
They had confidence as well in 2014 when they lent us this amount. The question is, Cynthia, the question is the promise on how debt will be dealt with by this new administration. Yes, probably there's need, and we do agree that debt sometimes is necessary. But the promise and political promises are made, and Kenyans take them seriously. And some of these promises are made on very high platforms, especially the inauguration of the president. There's no bigger platform than that one. It was not just during campaigns. Now we see that we have taken another, sourced another Eurobond that will amortize or mature in 2031. Aren't we just kicking the can down the road, postponing a problem and not really resolving it?
Fred, looking at the standard headline that Ruto goes after expensive loans to settle Eurobonds, I'm left wondering what was cheaper in this case, where we have this Eurobond falling due in June. Because Fred, as a country, you and I know that we cannot raise $2 billion before June. The best we can is 0.5, and that's why we're getting 1.5, so that we can top it out with 0.5, and then we're able to pay this loan. The alternative, Fred, would be, let us default on this loan. You know the repercussions that follow that, Fred. And to be honest, I think as a country, we should stop putting people in a place and then folding our arms and saying, let's wait and see how he will fall or how she will fall. I think we need to get out of that zone and be able to be proactive in finding solutions. Because, Fred, if we become sensational about how this loan is expensive and we're not giving options as to which one is cheaper, because you see, you look at the domestic borrowing percentages and interest, they're 17%. Can we do further taxation? No, Kenyans cannot be able to carry any more taxation. So what is the other option? Because, Fred, a country has to run, and the president has the responsibility of ensuring that the country is running. He has made very tough decisions, and I support his decisions because I don't know what I would have done if I was in his shoe. And I think we should also be able to appreciate, because really, Fred, do we default and then what happens to our economy? Again, Fred, I think the issue of the promises that were made during the campaigns, none of those promises have been negated, not even on the borrowing, because Fred, this money that is being borrowed is actually sorting a problem that is existing. You must be able, I think we should be able to take a stock of what has happened in this government after 5 years, so that we can be able to compare what was borrowed in the 5 years and how many issues.
Are we really sorting out the problem, Bwana Orogo? Because as it is right now, we've just looked for a way to postpone the problem. Buy back the same Eurobond and kick the can down the road to the next 10 years. So now it will mature in 2031, just a year before the 2032 elections. Haven't we just postponed the same problem? We've not really repaid anything.
I mean, all indications shows that there is already a bond taken, more of a loan taken to repay a loan, as you well put it. What are the options? Our public debt ceiling now is being indicated as 11 trillion, even as we speak. There has been an effort by the parliament to try to deal with this public debt, and especially our debt ceiling. May I also agree that from a fair judgment and fair assessment of the situation, I think taxing citizens is no longer tenable. It's citizens have been taxed, and even right now the fear that the introduction of e-citizen payment, further goes ahead even to strain more Kenyans, because now other avenues of payment that have been probably government would want to tax even this particular payment. Thinking about other avenues of, taxing Kenyans. I mean, from the indication, it seems the government is exhausting or has exhausted, other ways of domestic, raising domestic taxes and revenues. That said and done, I still believe that we probably getting ourselves into a little bit of more problems, because the more we pay, the more interest rates we are gathering. It seems that because from what I see, the dollar has begun to gain. I mean, the Kenya shilling is gaining against the dollar, and I wonder how long that is going to be, sustained because of both domestic and international, issues. I hope, because then when it comes to payment, remember we're also looking at the currency situation that we as a country are paying this particular bond. So, because that then would be in the international currency and not really our local currency. So that says my fear. May I also see, on the other hand, advise, the set that every time we are put into a situation to try to explain, we find ourselves in this situation. The fingers have been pointed to a regime that was there before. It is really, I think, some laxity in responsibility. Because we understand, and what my honorable colleague and in the set is talking about, that inherently the Kenya Kwanza regime, and this has been chorused through, inherited empty public coffers, that even within the transition and handing over, the regime find itself in a very hard situation by what was done by Kenyatta regime. And the pundits are saying that there have been successive regimes that have been there and probably have find themselves in similar situation, and has worked through silently and through a consultative manner to try to restore back the economy. So I believe that yes, as a country, we might have faced this situation. That from the vintage point or from the knowledge point, our colleagues might know that, you see, the country as Kenya Kwanza regime was getting into power, some of these might have been, they found themselves into this situation. However, it is years after the election. And this kind of justification is not sustainable. It's
no longer tenable.
What we are trying to see is, once we find ourselves in a situation that allows us, in panels like this, allows us to explain, we give an account to what has been done. It's about communicating our position and not blaming ourselves on what we are getting ourselves into.
In a similar problem, because even if the Kenya Kwanza administration was to get a second term, then it's up until 2032. This one is maturing in 2031. In case of default, this would not really affect much of that particular administration. That would fall to the next administration. Aren't we doing more of the same now that they're saying, yes, we should blame this on the last regime, but aren't we setting up ourselves for a similar problem in 10 years' time?
You know, Ndimuli, I really worry when I hear very insensitive remarks being made, or remarks about the fact that it's because of the other regime. This government has been in office for more than 1.5 years now. They are done with about 25% of their term. It is disturbing when Honorable Karobia talks about the president now as if he was not in government then, as if he never knew. You know, when you asked him about the promises that the president made on the campaign trail, and Honorable Karobia says that something to the effect that he didn't know what was happening then, he didn't know the state of the nation then. That is why, so are we saying that the entire Kenya Kwanza fiscal policy or manifesto on the financial aspects was based on a misunderstanding of the state of the nation? It is extremely disturbing. It is also disturbing when now we find a situation, and I respect what my brother has said about the fact that you cannot continue to overtax citizens. It is not tenable. But then the government had promised that while we are getting people to pay these taxes, it's so that then we are able to honor our obligations. So now for it to take a 360 and behave as if that commitment was never made, so where have our taxes gone? What happened? Was it that it made that commitment without necessarily examining the facts on the ground? Look at the question of the dollar. It suffered because the president again made a declaration about the fact that now we'll be trading in shilling, which was a very sensational declaration to make. But the impact and what happened then as a result of that caused the Kenya shilling to be on a free fall. Now, even the DG of Central Bank has said it is not that the economy is stable now that we are seeing the shilling has now risen. It is an artificial intervention. So it's not to say that we are doing any better. It is just an artificial intervention, which, again, this government had said it was not going to do. So then you wonder, have then these interventions that the government has been making, because it says it's going to do this to move us forward, then we don't achieve it, it comes back and does a 360. It's unfair to the citizens.
Then the question is, now that we've seen this pressure, now that they've been able to secure a way to buy back the Eurobond, and we're no longer under pressure on how to repay it before June, should we, as Kenyans, expect some relief, especially on the taxation measures that people are already complaining about, now that at least this issue has been sorted, Bwana Karobia?
I don't want to give a commitment on that.
But shouldn't it be natural that now that there's no more pressure, there should be some relief for the citizenry?
Of course, if we didn't go the route, and I like the way Mheshimiwa Cynthia said, if we didn't use this route of the 1.5 US dollars transaction, the opposite or the alternative would have been adding more taxes on the citizen, because at the end of the day we must have paid that Eurobond that we had we committed in 2014. But allow me to say this, Fred. Kenya is creditworthy at the international financial markets, and that's why we are getting this kind of transactions. There are some countries, and Fred, by virtue of my position, you know I've been visiting countries in the region. There are countries in our African continent that they have been even declared by international financial institutions, such as Finch of the US, that they are not creditworthy. And you see, what does that happen? What does that mean or result to? It means that foreign investors will not come to your country because they will be seen that this is not a creditworthy country, This is a country where if I put my money, it runs the risk of not buying the fruits or getting the value of my money if I put my money in that economy. Let me say that the fact that the Kenyan economy is having the confidence from the international financial institution it actually builds confidence from foreign investors to come to our economy and invest in this country. And I want to say this to our citizens, that we are going to see fruits born or positive results from this
in terms of tax relief?
Even in terms of capital circulation in our economy.
Okay.
Because now foreign investors will come in our country. You'll find people. In fact, I was reading some brief yesterday, and I saw there are some ships that are docking in our port. That tells you things are coming into our country. Okay. Investors are being attracted by our economy. So there might be some challenges that we are facing, Fred, but progress is always gradual, and we are on the right path.
This Eurobond is actually, the interest rate on this second Eurobond is actually higher than the first. This one is 9.75%. The first one for 2014 was let me just get it correct, 6.875, a difference of about 3 percentage points. Meaning that at the end of it, we will pay and we'll pay dearly. But either way, it has managed to ease the pressure, at least for now. And same question, as a member of the National Assembly, the budget process has started. We do expect a finance bill to come up very soon. The discussions are underway. Should we expect some relief because of this kind of progress?
Well, yeah, Fred, of course we expect some relief, so to speak, because of this. It was a lot of pressure. You should have seen the kind of tension that was here, looking at the June 2024 maturity date. And Fred, there's a few comments that have been made, especially the comment to the effect of maybe the repayment of this loan in 2031 will not affect this particular administration. Fred, I want to say that it will affect this administration, because if you look at how it is going to be paid, it is going to be paid in 3 installments. The first one in 2029, the second one in 2030, and the last one in 2031. So who will be in this administration? It is this specific government. And you see, being the last...
If at all they get elected.
Oh yes, yeah, if they get elected, of course, yeah, we hope that it will get elected. But if at all they get elected, that we hope that it will be elected. So, of course, yes. So the issue of just maybe making it look like a careless loan that has been taken with the hope of someone else who is going to carry the burden, it's not going to be there. This is a very responsible government, and it will ensure that it does that. And then the issue of blaming the other regime, I think it's just a comment that is thrown by a few people, but the Kenya Kwanza government stopped the blame game. It is in government, and it has a responsibility of helping the people of Kenya. That is its sole responsibility. So the issue of the previous administration, it's over. That was the first 2-3 weeks, 6 months in office, when you're trying to get to know what is happening where and what is not happening where. Otherwise, it's over. This government is in the right direction, and it is actually paying attention to delivering services to the people of Kenya. And you see, we must also appreciate, by the fact that we passed the test and caught the eye of the who is who in this world, during the extensive analysis of the economic situation of Kenya, we must call it progress, Fred, because the other people who cannot get a single dime from anyone because of how the economic analysis looks like. So with that, there is effort, there is goodwill, and definitely, Fred, there is a bit of, actually a lot of deliberate moves to be able to help the people of Kenya and stabilize the economy of Kenya. And as Parliament, as we prepare for the finance bill that is coming the next financial year, 24-25, we are more deliberate, and we have our house in order, and we are going to make very deliberate decisions on matters. What?
Some relief is coming the way.
Of course, surely it is. What do you mean relief?
In terms of taxes.
I cannot speak to that. You see, I'm not a fiscal analyst.
Why you want more Mine has avoided it. because you also avoided it. Why?
No. Let me tell you this. I am a member of Parliament. I speak on behalf of the people of Nandi. I do not work in the executive, and I do not have the technical know-how to decide on how the taxes will be or will not be. So we will wait for the technical report and analysis, then we can be able to then pronounce ourselves on the same. I'll be lying.
Okay.
And misleading.
Fair enough. Let's talk about some politics here. And it's interesting because now, a few weeks back, a week or so ago, the Prime Cabinet Secretary was in Bondo. And he made a very curious remark and promised people of Bondo that very soon he'll be back there with some very good news for them. Now, we are seeing a very interesting headline, and we are wondering whether or not this was a promise that he had for them. Raila's journey to AU top job begins with Mudavadi trip to Addis Ababa. I'm going back to that promise because it is Mudavadi doing this. The same. He said that the Prime Cabinet Secretary is expected to lead Kenya's push to have Raila elected chairperson of the African Union Commission during the interministerial conference of the AU meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that begins today. I've seen a similar headline, and it is on the front page of the People Daily. It is the biggest headline of the People Daily this morning. Let me just get it for you. And you see the kind of nuances there as well. And because, yes, why Ruto wants Raila for AU post. But then again, goes ahead and talks about the president's advisors thinking that African Union top job will retire Azimio leader out of 2027 polls and give Kenya Kwanza breathing space. Bwana Orogo, what is your assessment of this? Well, definitely the African Union Commission chairperson's job is a prestigious one. But the kind of reason given on the front page of the People Daily, that's the issue. That probably they just want to get Raila out of the way.
Which makes it interesting. During the Kenyatta-Ruto administration, the Honorable Raila Odinga was equally given a continental job. He was the Higher Commission for Infrastructure and I think development of roads in Africa. The assumption was that the only way, again, the only way of calming him down, according to all the papers or how it's being reported, is to make him busy with continental, assignment. We are all in this country, we can give a report to that, whether it worked out or whether it didn't. So this is another attempt. And it seems there's been a conversation. If you go further to this kind of narrative, remember that the Honorable Raila and His Excellency, the President of Kenya, had an agreement about how to implement the NADCO report. And on how some of these proposals would find bipartisan, proposals within the floors of Parliament, some of the aspects that were discussed within that report. So I kept asking, okay, that is an agreement, what is in the take? Because I don't think, he would have just, especially the principals, the leader of opposition would have just said, fine, we agree, go implement. What would be the take from that side? So it's probably coming out that this AU assignment could have been a discussion that was on the table for them, but under the table for Kenyans now is becoming clearer to what it is. While I agree that this particular responsibility, and from the look of things, is that the AU Commission should be a rotational job. West Africa has already exhausted. They had a responsibility through Issa Faki, who is now the outgoing, chair of that commission. Southern African was also claiming they would want a position. East Africans now through, and there's been a consistent push to have one from East Africa. And if by that particular objective discussion, find that Honorable Raila Odinga is qualified to have that position, so be it. Because of the fact that of that qualifications. But I think internally, with our domestic politics, I think there is an opportunity for politicians or for leaders headed by the charm offensive and diplomatic shuttle that is being spearheaded by the foreign affairs docket to have him be in that position.
My question
for me,
is,
I think it's okay.
Why
Being
Raila?
objective, it is okay for him to have that position.
Okay.
But politically is another thing.
Why Raila? There are so many other people who may qualify for this job. Why would this administration be pushing for Raila Odinga to be the AU Commission chairperson?
Before I speak about the Honorable Raila, I'd like to correct my brother who talked about ships docking yesterday as an indicator.
Not yesterday.
Or even a few days ago as an indicator of economic success in the country. The only time that, I do maritime law, which I also teach at the University of Nairobi, and which is also my PhD topic. So I'm here also, this is important for the country to know.
Okay.
The only time that reduced was during COVID, and we know why. So the fact that they are docking even today is not an indicator. It's what goes on, because Kenya is one of the important trading routes in the region. So let's not misdirect our
He is just saying what I'm saying, in other words. You see, Fred.
I need to speak about Raila.
Fred, let me say this.
We don't have enough time to go back to that conversation.
She can't run away with that, because there was actually 35% earning, that 5% increase or rise, something of the sort. I saw in a certain brief from the government spokesperson, compared of people coming through or imports coming through the port compared to the other year. And you see, these are indicators, or these are basic indicators of an economy that is growing. These are an indicator of an economy that people have confidence in. Otherwise, you can have a port, and people are not operating on it.
Let me help my brother further. 3 weeks ago I was in Dar es Salaam, and one of the reasons why I was there, it's important that Kenyans know the truth. One of the reasons why I was there was to talk about the enhancing maritime security within the region. So let's not, let's attribute credit where it's supposed to be. Yeah.
And the 30% increase is actually a credit.
It is an indicator of security.
I think we should plan for this conversation.
Yes, a maritime conversation. Indeed. Now, I will respond now to the question of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and say that it is not, as my brother there has indicated, it's not unusual, Orogo has indicated, it's not unusual for such an offer to be made. It has been made before. Now, again, the president is a politician, and it goes back to the conversations that we've been having. So what happens after a political cycle? And so because I'm trying, when then you find a situation whereby certain things are being had after the conversations with respect to the post-election scenario, then it gives context to why these things are happening. It's important to know that this term, of course, is renewable in 2027, around Feb, but it doesn't stop the Right Honorable Raila, should he decide to vie in 2027, to vie. And that is why even when our sister was talking about the fact that the Eurobond will be paid in 2029, the first installment, that is why it's important to say it's not a matter of course that the government will be re-elected in 2027. Right. So as to whether it is to keep Raila out of politics or not, the Honorable Raila has a choice to make in terms of even when he's doing, he can still maintain the ground and come back and vie if he wants.
My question about why Raila is because there's so many other gentlemen who may be deemed qualified for this position. There's also the argument about, as you mentioned, the NADCO report that talks about the office of the official leader of opposition and who should be occupying that. Discussions have been there, and there was talk that even the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta may have been considered for this AU commission chairperson job. Hence the question, why would Kenya Kwanza go for Raila Odinga?
You see, Fred, I don't want to speculate. Say whether it is preparation of 2027 or what have you. But for me, looking at my 1 year at East Africa, I've realized when you are going out of the country, you shed off the political conviction that a person has. And when you're going out of the country, you're now facing the world, facing the other stakeholders as a country. And from my from my view, if what the newspapers are saying is true, or they are founded claims, I would look at it from the point of the relevant personnel. They have tried to look at a person who has experience in regards to Africa Union affairs. Remember, previously, Raila Odinga was the envoy on infrastructure. So, from that position that he occupied in some few years back, there is some experience he has in regards to Africa Union affairs. You don't want to bring somebody who now start to look at how are these done.
The retired president Uhuru Kenyatta has quite some experience as well. And Amina Mohammed was
are they interested?
propped up for that job.
Are they interested?
Kalonzo Musyoka too has quite some experience in these matters. Why would Kenya Kwanza come out strongly and go and campaign for Raila Odinga? Of course, given the kind of politics that happens here locally.
Well, Fred, I don't think this is anything new regarding Honorable Raila Odinga. You know, I remember in the last regime in 2017 when the voting went down. I don't know if you had this discussion about why Raila was being also fronted by that regime for the, was it called High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa. He was fronted for the same, there was politics around it. So there's nothing new really, Fred. No. It's the same thing this year. And you see,
so you're just trying
and
to
I want to say, no, it's not really about getting rid of him. You know, Raila and the current president of the Republic of Kenya have been on the same ballot, and the president beat him hands down. So why would you want to get him out of the way? Whether he's there or he's not there, President William Ruto and him will square it out. Yeah. And of course, I declare my support for President William Ruto. And again, why Raila? Why are people asking why Raila? I want to ask, why not Raila? He has the experience. He is actually a Kenyan who deserves an opportunity. Why not him? Can we just take off the political lenses for once and stop being hypocrites? At one point we say, let's not do politics. At the other point, I don't know. I don't think we can. We can. Maybe we can or we cannot. But you see, we are actually saying and doing exactly what you're saying we should not be doing. And you see, this government is magnanimous. Whether it is Raila or whatever it is, as long as they serve the purpose and they do the job, we'll square it out in 2027 when the time comes.
Right. I'll give each one of you a minute because we are almost at the end of our show. So at least a minute each, please. Starting with you, Bwana Orogo, for your final comments. You could choose to still talk about that issue.
Well, just briefly, I think the papers have equally said, and I said, what is in the stake? What is he taking? Is he forfeiting his earlier strong stance against some of the government policies and proposals? Could be, because that is what is mentioned on the papers. You know, for him to agree and the plot to blackmail him to support you know, housing levy and all these, according to the papers. I'm just reading. Mm-hmm. So why him is because he's the leader of opposition that probably is seen as standing in the way for most of these government proposals that must find their way through. Like my colleague have said, politics is in play domestically. Internationally, we have people who are qualified and have held these dockets. It's not about who have shown their interest. The government could actually make them show their interest. Mm-hmm. Ambassador Amina Mohammed qualified, ran for you know, a position at the UN, still a very good diplomat. There are so many who can still have this position. But as we say, I think it's politics. And as we conclude, I think in such a scenario here, we are finding ourselves on you know, on the background of you know, a house that is going to reconvene today, again for the second time. Yesterday, I saw that there was you know, the house there was an election of you know, members to represent the House Business Committee, and we hopefully that there is going to be a conversation around you know, NADCO report and all other issues that are still pending before the Parliament. Priority would be given to pertinent issues that are affecting Kenyans. I urge our members of Parliament representing us on this set that this is the consideration of some of these particular things that find their way in the floor of Parliament. Would they have a bipartisan conversation? the constitution of IBC reconstitution is a thorny issue that we ask for a bipartisan objective conversation. Lastly is to wish Kenyans a happy Valentine's Day. Let us make it safe. I am worried of the news tomorrow. The owners of Airbnbs, please secure your guest who will be on these particular places, all these other places where Kenyans will be, converging to celebrate this day.
Thank you, Daniel Orogo. Next, Harriet.
Kenyans want a thriving economy. One can only achieve that if we have accountability. The surest way to have that is when we have independent institutions. One of those independent institutions is an independent law society, what we call an independent bar. On 29th of February 2024, lawyers will go to the ballot to elect a president of the law society and a council. I urge members to elect Harriet Njoki-Mboshe as their president, because an independent bar is one that will then be able to firmly, boldly hold the government, meaning all the institutions, to account. We need that if we are to have honest conversations that will drive the conversation forward. Today is a day of love. In Dimuli, I'm surprised you didn't have flowers for us. You didn't have chocolate.
Well, the show is not over.
So,
There's a band here. A band being organized.
We wish that we had a more thriving economy so that people can celebrate love in the best way possible. We wish Kenyans the best as they celebrate love, and we hope that we will continue to work as a united country and move our country forward.
I guarantee you we have some Valentine treats. When it comes to flowers, on the front page of the Standard, they're talking about just how expensive flowers are. Karobia, your final comment.
Yes, my final comment, Fred, allow me to take this opportunity, condole with the family of the global superstar, that is Kevin Kiptum. And I wish the family to find comfort in God's love, and may God strengthen them during this difficult moment. I know it's tough. The loss is not only at the family level, but also as a country we have lost a hero and a global icon. More to that, in Dimuli, the president is coming to the Mount Kenya region for a working tour, I think in 3 days. I want to welcome him in the region so that he can bring development goodies in the region. This is a region that supported him in 2022, and we will continue to support him throughout his political journey. And we can only give him warm welcome as he brings development to our region. In Dimuli, more to that, I want to say that Kenya, we are the people who are going to develop this country. Nobody else will come to develop it. And I want to urge Kenyans to develop a positive mindset towards the growth of our country. Sometimes if you inject negative energy if you harbor negative energy, you bring it even to the economy, and it affects even the economy. So let me say that this is a country that we all love. This is a country that we all belong to, and we are the people who are going to develop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Cynthia.
Thank you, Fred. I just want to say that, just a recap on the discussion that we had. The right Honorable Raila Odinga is a statesman, of course, apart from the few mandamanos and whatnot. And this AU job is part of the few things that he cannot lose. So I encourage him to actually take it. Lastly, I want to send my condolences to the family of Kelvin Kiptum and the county of Elgeyo Marakwet and the athletic fraternity. That is such a big blow to the athletics community. Our sincere condolences to them in the country at large. And lastly, being a Valentine's Day, have you noted that me and Harriet are in black? The best we did was a small piece of white because of the femicide that has been happening and has been attributed to love most of the time. So we are still calling for action, and we are calling for love and care. We must protect and take care of love. We are not in red because we have lost so many girls in that path. So we want to say that we must end femicide, and we must be able to talk to our community so that we can be able to tolerate each other and solve issues amicably. Lastly, Kenya Kwanza is making progress. The effort is there, the goodwill is there, and we'll surely get there.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cynthia Muge, woman representative, Nandi County. Maina Karobia, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, Harriet Njoki Mboshe, presidential candidate, also council member of the Law Society, and Daniel Orogo, political analyst. Yes, it is indeed Valentine's Day. Yeah. And we'll be having a treat quite shortly because we do have Don the saxophonist in studio. Thank you so much for agreeing to spend your time with us this morning. Allow me to go straight to editorial comment before we move on to the other discussion. Now, the Public Service Commission has made damning and deeply troubling revelations about the widespread use of fake academic certificates by public servants in critical government parastatals. The fact that individuals with forged credentials have managed to secure employment in vital sectors such as top referral hospitals and security services raises grave concerns about the safety and well-being of the public. The implications of the do extend far beyond individual cases of dishonesty. They strike at the heart of our nation's integrity. This trend promotes a culture of impunity and undermines the value of hard work and dedication in the pursuit of education. How can we expect young Kenyans to believe in the meritocratic principles of our society when shortcuts and deception seem to yield the same, if not better, rewards? The disillusionment bred by such a system threatens to erode the fabric of our nation and stifle the aspirations and future generations. As the DCI investigates these cases, it is crucial that the outcome and actions taken must send a clear message that academic fraud will not be tolerated and that those found guilty of such offenses will face severe consequences. To the young Kenyans striving for a better future, we say this: do not be discouraged by the shortcuts and dishonesty of others. True success is built on a foundation of hard work, perseverance, and integrity. While the pathway may be challenging, the rewards of genuine achievements far outweigh the fleeting gains obtained through deception. As a nation, we must commit ourselves to upholding the principles of honesty, transparency, and accountability in all aspects of our society. Only then can we truly fulfill the promise of education as a vehicle for progress and empowerment for all Kenyans. And that is our special Valentine's Day message to all Kenyans. And for now, I invite Don the saxophonist.
Umejaribu.